Drawing class. So this is your first assignment at home. This is anatomy drawing. So what you're going to do is draw basically the human figure, starting with the skeleton, and then creating the muscle structure over the figure itself. The reason for doing this drawing is so you get a clear and concise understanding of how a figure is shaped from every contour of the human body, to get an idea of how to better draw human figures in themselves. All right. The first thing you might want to do before you even start this project is in your sketchbook quickly lay out some very quick sketches of skeletons themselves. I sent to you all copies on Moodle. You have copies there posted of both the skeleton and the muscle structure. Various copies, in fact, here of the skeleton, and even an artist's rendering of a particular skeleton in different positions. All right, and this is what you'll be working from to make your drawing. You don't necessarily need to print these, but you can find the best one to local work from and utilize that. First being the skeleton, second being the muscles, and I even have individual particular sections of muscles as well for the muscle one to lay out more detail. You can choose these, or you can also find your own anatomy drawings online, or images of skeletons online to draw from, but that's basically how you would start. And so after doing a few quick gesture drawings to loosen up, what gesture drawing is very just like quick suggestive drawings of the figure laid out in here to get an idea how to draw it. You're not so much concerned about proportions this time around. You're just sort of building out on that skeleton in themselves. All right. So here I'm just drawing this guy from the worksheet there. All right, to get an idea of how it's laid out. All right, notice how I'm drawing through everything as I draw around through the skeleton, and I'm not doing any details. I'm just laying out basic shapes for the head and basic shapes for the rib cage area, and the torso area as well, as the legs, the arms become just like basic stick figures. Very quick drawings to loosen up. Once you're loosened up, then you can start on the regular assignment. Now I know some of you have all your materials you need, and other people don't. All right, starting with the first, I'm going to talk about ones that do have drawing paper. All right, if you have drawing paper to work from, the 18 by 24 is what you're going to do your layout on. First, before you even start drawing your skeleton, you're going to start by measuring down 1/2 inch from the top of the paper here. And then with a ruler or some sort of straight edge even, just make a line across there. You don't necessarily need a ruler. Maybe your dad has a tape measure at home or something like that. But then you'll use your charcoal to simply make a light line across there using the Vine charcoal. If you don't have your tools, you can use a pencil, but make it light so you can see. I only made these darker just so you can see them correctly with the video. After that first line, it's 1/2 inch. Make the rest of the lines 2 7/8 inches the rest of the way down the paper. So you'll measure this down 2 7/8 and make a mark. You'll bring it down to the next one 2 7/8 and make a mark, so on and so forth until you get down to the bottom of the paper. And it should leave you with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal spaces and 1/2 inch left over at the bottom of the paper. Then, when you look at these worksheets, you will notice they have lines across them, just like what you put on your paper. All right. Each line is a section of the skeleton beginning with the head. All right, so then what you're going to do with your Vine charcoal is quickly lay out the head of the skeleton within the first 2 lines of the paper. Do not bring it all the way to the top of your drawing paper. That does not make a good composition. Leave a little space up there. All right, and make sure that your head begins at the top and ends at that bottom in that first section. All right, it can't be smaller than that. It can't be bigger than that. All right, the entire head must fit in that section, just as in the illustration here. all right, or this one here as well, okay? Then you move on down to this next section. You just loosely lay out the head. Don't sit there and draw it in detail. Just a quick sketch, which I had there originally. Then you're going to lay the neck out there as a sort of a quick sketch. Don't draw the ribs. Don't pay attention to any of the individual structure. You're just going to draw this as an overall shape. You're going to come down here to the torso and draw that as more or less a very, very quick overall shape. The knees, find out their positioning based on the lines and the actual drawing you're working from, the illustration. See, they're right there's the knees, about in the center of that line section. And then the bottom of the legs here, the tibia and the fibula are down here, and the feet fall into the last section, not going all the way to the bottom line. They're only halfway down the line. You can see on this one. This is one I use to quickly draw it out, by the way. I like the pose of the way the hands are sort of sideways on that, the way the feet are laid out. Okay, so you're going to quickly throw it down. Once you have it down there very lightly and quickly, then you're going to start working in the details. You can start out with vine charcoal, but then after that you can move into the ebony pencil if you want to get really fine detail. Remember, use the wide hole pencil sharpener to sharpen an ebony pencil so the point doesn't break off, okay? Or use your, the other materials you can use are your black Conte crayon to get a lot of contrast, which is very nice. But now that I have it laid out really quickly, I'm going to go back in with the ebony pencil and tighten up some and start bringing details into it. And I like to jump around in the drawing as I'm working. Hold this back, please. I'll jump from here, work on this little area over here a bit, work on the torso a bit, maybe jump down to the feet, all right? Back and forth throughout the drawing, okay? It's the best way to work and gradually build it up until you get a nice fine detail to your skeleton. Of course, then remove your lines with your eraser. Make sure they're cleaned out of there. The other thing I forgot to tell you was I also centered the skeleton by measuring this way 9 inches and putting a mark at the top and a mark at the bottom. That way I get my skeleton nice and straight on the paper as well. All right, those are tricks to doing it right. All right, another trick, say if you're working on handmade paper like I talked about in the last video. You can see this one is one I started here on handmade paper. I made this paper, last video demonstration, out of bits and pieces of old hospital bills, medical bills, as well as prescription drug papers, and I glued it together with just a glue stick, all right? And it made this really nice paper. I even reinforced it with some of the scrap envelopes and stuff like that. And it's got, you know, it's like regular paper, so you can draw on it too, all right? And then I started out a skeleton on charcoal with that one, all right? And now I'm going to gradually work on this and build the details up in it. And I even think I'm going to add a little personal touch to it, since there's personal information on these papers, my name, my address, and so forth. I'm going to sit there and draw this like a self-portrait. I set myself up with a mirror here that you can see right here, and I'm going to sit here and as I build my skeleton up and gradually add my muscle structure to this drawing, I'm also going to add some features of myself into it, you know, to sort of make it more personal. Just like the information being told too. All right. The other thing I want to talk about, thing that people will have trouble with, we'll jump back to this drawing for a second here. Thing that people will have trouble with is understanding how these feet are. Now these feet in the illustration are foreshortened basically, so you want to draw them basically as that shape. When you're working on feet and hands, draw them as a mass form or a mass shape like this before you go down to drawing any individual digits, okay? That's very important. When you draw when you're building out the feet, build them out as one individual shape and then gradually work the details of every bone into it. The same, I got to reiterate that again, the same thing with the rib cage. Never sit there and draw every individual rib, one rib at a time. Sorry about that, big motorcycles going by. Anyway, one rib at a time, never do that. Draw it as a mass form and then build the ribs inside of that mass form, all right? That way they will look held together. They'll look like they're one piece in a sense, just the way they are in actual life, okay? You can see it clearly on here, all the detail of that. All right. By the way, how did I get this drawing here? Wow, did I spend a lot of time doing 2 drawings? No, actually I didn't. I quickly transferred this drawing onto this other paper. So that's how I got 2 identical drawings here. That's a secret tip to be able to make 2 drawings at once, by the way. I drew this out with Vine charcoal on the good drawing paper. Then I quickly flipped it over onto my other paper here, took a wooden spoon to the back of it, just like this, pressed into the paper really well, and I was able to transfer that drawing over to my new piece of paper. All right, and now that's how I got this. All right, so if you're interested in doing that, that's one way that you can finish this drawing out, because the last thing you want to do is put the muscle structure on the drawing. Jumping back to this one again, you should those of you that got drawing paper successfully will also have 1 sheet of mylar, frosted mylar. With that, lay your once you have your skeleton fully detailed and finished out, lay your mylar on top of that drawing paper and then continue on with the muscles. All right, look at this sheet as well as many of the muscle worksheets in here to develop muscles on your skeleton. All right, the most important thing to remember when doing that is that muscles attach to bone. They do not go over bone. All right, if you end up drawing these muscles in a way that they do more than just simply attach, you'll end up making something that looks like the Michelin Man. All right, and you don't want that. You want these muscles to feel like they're part of the structure. So as you're laying out your muscles lightly on this paper, make sure they attach and they don't ride certain areas, like where we have our joints, where our elbows are and so forth. We don't have muscle covering those elbows, so why would I draw it? Make sense? Don't draw it if you don't see it. Therefore, you won't have a lot of muscle in the face, just like the illustration shows. You've got muscles going up here above the eyes that make you raise your eyebrows, and people can do that, but you don't have other muscles. You don't have muscles on the top of your head, just right there where they attach. All right, so I wouldn't sit there and draw anything more than that, All right, so be aware of that. I have some examples in the PowerPoint, so don't forget to check out the PowerPoint for other student work examples on this project. Okay, for this drawing I can be more creative. When I get to the muscle structure, I'm going to draw it directly on the paper too. All right, so I might use a different material for the muscles, like a red colored pencil if I happen to have one, or I'll do some sort of strange combination of a skeletal muscular sort of drawing where you can see some of the skeleton coming through and some of the muscles will override certain parts of the body as well. Have fun with this. Those of you that don't have materials and supplies, weren't able to get back to get any, this is what you've got. Work with what you got, and you'll make very interesting drawings. I also have good examples of that in my PowerPoint presentation as well. That's all the tips. If you have any questions, just send me an email. Thank you for tuning in.